Hello, this is Fear Dragon, and welcome to Breaking Out, the show about North American StarCraft 2 players. Here on this show, we take a look at an up-and-coming North American talent. Each week, we check out a new player to get a feel for their personality and their playstyle. On Thursday, we interview the player to find out more about who they are and why you should care about them. On Friday, we watch 3 of their games as we cover their playstyle in each of the 3 matchups. Saturday, we take a look at an awesome game they played and relax with a little bit of fun as we recap the week and get an analysis of the games. Breaking Out will cover 8 players before it culminates into the Breakout Invitational. With a minimum prize pool of $1,000, we find out who is the most likely player to break out of the North American scene. But enough of that. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Hope you guys enjoy the show. Hello, welcome to Breaking Out, the show about North American StarCraft 2 players that you need to know about. Today on the show, we're going to be jumping into the Zerg vs. Zerg from the week of Team Gravity's Kreos, so let's go ahead and jump into it and introduce the players as we spawn. Down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, on top of the player representing Team Complexity, it is Complexity's Hendralisk. And his opponent, spawning up here in the top side of the map, Polar Knight, we have the red Zerg player. He is the highlight player of the week. Representing Team Gravity, it is Gravity's Kreos. Go check out his sponsors. But you might be wondering, well, you know what, Fear Dragon? This doesn't look like a ladder game. I mean, sure, this is a shade of blue, and this is clearly the color red, but there's all kinds of logos on the ground, and this just doesn't seem entirely right, and you would be correct. Because this is actually from the Deimos Esports Team League, the series between Team Gravity and Team Complexity, where Kreos actually played. So Zerg vs. Zerg. Hendril is actually one of the other players in Breaking Out, so this is going to be a very, very interesting little game. Really interested to see how this is going to go, because, I mean, again, they're both good. They could very well end up playing against each other in the actual Breakout Invitational, the tournament that happens at the end of Breaking Out. So this could be a little bit of a preview of how that series could go. But for now, let's focus on what's going on in this game so far, all right? So first of all, Kreos has said he likes to play a bit more toward the late game. He's like a macro Zerg player that likes to be super duper aggressive and loves to do multi-prong draw press. He likes to pick apart his opponents. Hendralisk, on the other hand, is the type of Zerg player who likes to be a little bit more mind gaming. He has great mechanics, for sure, don't get me wrong, but he realizes that he is not a full-time pro gamer, and in order to keep up with those who have more time to invest into playing, he tries to play a little bit more mind gaming. He tries to counteract what his opponent is trying to do. Play against their playstyle and play against the player rather than just specifically what the race is capable of. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this ends up shaping up. We already have Gas Geyser down for Hendralisk over there, and Kreos is just getting a slightly later Gas Geyser. This means that his gas is going to be a little bit later, or his spawning pool is going to start researching Zergling speed a little bit later. But honestly, I don't think that's going to be an enormously large difference. It really is going to be up to these players to kind of make do with the openings that they have done. As they both are getting up the hatcheries, they're getting up Zergling speed eventually. One is clearly going to be a bit ahead of the other, a good 70 or 60 gas ahead. So Hendrils could maybe do something with that Zergling timing, but it's going to come down to a matter of like 30 seconds. And it's going to be a little bit difficult to actually really make use of that kind of advantage in your Zergling speed. So at the end of all this, we'll take a look at the map. So Polar Knight is a really, really fantastic map for putting on a lot of early Zergling, Baneling, or Roche aggression, just because it's pretty short ground distances. You can pretty much run to your opponent's base without too much trouble. And, you know, I think that with Hendralis' opening, the early Zergling speed is going to allow him to maybe put on a little bit of Zergling pressure. He's probably going to be poking out very, very soon, I imagine, with some Zerglings, but, you know, nothing really being made just yet. And actually just going straight up to the Baneling that's continuing to drone up. In the meanwhile, Kreos going to be a little bit more active out on the map, going to send out 2 Zerglings. So it's all those little cut corners, 2 Zerglings, a couple of extra drone, or, well, 1 extra drone, really, but it all helps out in the end. But for the most part, both these players going for relatively similar builds at this point. I mean, again, the Zergling speed is a good 30-40 seconds ahead for Hendralisk, but unless there's an engagement that happens right when Hendralis' Zergling speed finishes up, it's not really going to matter. But, oh, a little bit of Zergling micro coming out over here. Hendralis actually losing out a little bit. Look at this. 2 Zerglings very low on health versus 2 Zerglings at orange health. Very well microed over there from Team Gravity's Kreos. And that's weirdly enough, that's actually just going to put Hendrilisk into a situation where he cannot really go at, and be super active on the map. Although, you know, he does have Zergling speed, so I take it back. He probably could actually run straight past those two Zerglings, but instead he's going to morph up with Baneling. Just be prepared for any kind of shenanigans that could go on, because you have to take a look at what he scouted. He had a little bit of information about the main base. He saw that there was the gas geyser, but he pulled his Overlord out before he could really see if there was any gas that isn't being mined anymore. Basically, he didn't really see if Kreos stopped mining gas and was about to go for a giant speedling all-in. But I mean, by this point, he's probably thinking, okay, it's probably not that, just because there's another gas geyser going down, and you don't really need extra gas geysers if you're going for a speedling all-in. So, in the meanwhile, it looks like Hendrilisk's going to go up to his lair tech, but let's take a look at Kreos' vision. I mean, he saw a little bit with those two Zerglings. He saw the Baneling nest, so he's probably got to be thinking, okay, you know what? This is looking pretty normal. It looks like my opponent wants to go some pretty fast lair tech, and he actually goes ahead and does the relatively same thing. A little bit further behind, but no big deal, I don't think. It's going to make a very slight difference in terms of lair time. Again, it's like 15-20 seconds behind from his opponent. That's about the amount of time that it'll take for Mutals to even walk across the map. So there's not really going to be any kind of crazy difference in the Mutals counters. We end up seeing both these players going for that Spire tech. But again, Kreos, he's a player that likes to play toward the late game. He likes to have a lot of units in that macro mode so he can split up his opponent and just out multitask them a little bit. So this is where we're really going to end up seeing this game kick into high gear. We end up seeing Hendrilisk starting to get a couple of Zerglings and Banelings out on the other side of the map. Oh, it looks like Kreos coming in with a couple of Banelings of his own, though. The Baneling on Baneling Micro. Oh, pretty good hits for both of these players. And in the end, it looks like Hendrilisk may just have a few more Zerglings, but reinforcements do pop out for Kreos. And it doesn't look like any kind of real big aggression can happen over here. Some pretty good trades for both sides. And looks like third expansions are going to be pretty safely secured by this point. Spinecrawler going down for both these players. This is a really cute move. It's actually really cool to see both of these players doing the exact same sort of thing. Really, this has just been such a mirrored game as the Spires are going to be finishing up, I mean, a good 7 or 8 seconds apart from each other. Oh! Pretty nice hits over there for Kreos. He managed to clean up the remainder of his opponent's Zerglings, and now he has a larger number of Speedlings around on the map. 24 Speedlings to 9. I'm not sure actually if Hendrilisk has a whole lot to deal with this outside of this one Baneling. It's really going to come down to that one Baneling. He can at least buy himself time with the Baneling, even if he doesn't get an enormous hit. And Kreos is trying to bait out that Baneling. He gets out a ton of Banelings of his own. Oh my god! Really well controlled over there from Kreos. A little bit of a flub over there from Hendrilisk. He moves up to the high ground, doesn't see the Banelings, and suddenly, boom! All of his Zerglings and his Baneling are all gone. And, you know, the Mutals are finally going to pop out at exactly the right time and clean this up for Hendrilisk. And he's not going to have to worry about those Zerglings and Banelings kind of pressuring that third expansion. But still, a good amount of damage in terms of the Zergling count was done over there. And that does mean that Kreos has a slight little lead in that Zergling count. And, you know, both these players are going to want to be using all their larvae, especially since they have 3 bases. They're really going to be having all the gas that they need to produce as many Mutals as possible. They're going to be wanting to use all that larva on the Mutalisk because the Mutals count is king oftentimes in the ZvZ matchup. Zerglings are helpful, but it's better if you can kind of make do with the Zerglings that you had made earlier on in the game than having to reproduce a bunch of them, because also you want to occasionally get up a couple more drones and everything, because you want to eventually be able to saturate up this third expansion on minerals as well, because that allows you to have the minerals to get up additional Zerglings and, you know, maybe even other drones, Spore Crawlers, Spy Crawlers, etc. A nice little run by into the main base from Hendrilisk. Does manage to scout out. I mean, he sees that the Spire is done and everything. It's not really a big tell because both these players should know that they both have the Mutals counts out. And oh, only 1 Mutals difference between these two players. It looks like it's going to be a very, very even fight in the air. But you have to remember there's other things that go into that. There is also the Zergling count that helps out not just for counterattacks and such, as we may very well end up seeing Kreos do. But, oh, upgrades actually is a pretty big thing, and Kreos actually might be able to hit a really nice timing where he's going to have the Pulse from Carapace, and his opponent's not going to have it for another 20 seconds. These Mutals are just dancing around each other. Will Hendrilisk actually realize that, though, as Pulse from Carapace is now finished up for Kreos? Kreos is dancing around with his Zerglings. If he also has the Zerglings underneath the Mutals, he can soak up those Glaveworm bounces, but, oh, Zergling's actually just going straight for some type of counterattack, but no, he realizes that the Mutals are pretty much catching him completely off guard, so he wouldn't really be able to do a whole lot of damage over there. Mutalisk from Kreos dancing around, looking to try and make sure that he doesn't let any of the Zerglings slip by, but unfortunately they do anyways. As Hendrilisk gets straight up over to the main base. He's going to be able to pull this entire Mutals flock down over to the main base, and that is actually going to allow Hendrils a really great opportunity to kind of move in with the remainder of his own Mutalists. And, you know, he's sitting 25 actually, Mutals to 22, as, you know, a couple of them not exactly on this side of the map. But still, he's in a really nice position. Sends a couple of these Zerglings over here to the third expansion. And is actually going to be able to pull a couple of these units a little bit out of position. The Zerglings from Kreos take a couple of shots. And the Overlord's going to be pulling themselves back, realizing they don't want to be the ones that are picked off. And honestly, at this point, it's even upgrades. It's relatively even muta counts. Now that these players really want to commit over here. Oh, but Kreos actually manages to snag a couple of those Mutals. Some free pot shots, actually. Just because Hendrils doesn't quite control his Mutals to stay in one nice little clump. They kind of segregate from each other and realize that some Mutals are chasing after his opponent's Mutals. But honestly, it's been a really kind of back and forth game. Not a whole lot of damage has happened, but there's been a lot of army movement, just trying to pull each other out of position. Oh, it looks like Hendrils may have overcommitted just a little bit. He's moving in over here, but the Mutals from Kreos just seem to be in a better position. That means that if Hendrils realizes that he's in a bad engagement, he's going to have to run through Kreos' Mutals, and in the end, we end up seeing that, yeah, Hendrils actually got an okay engagement. He still has 19 Mutals, but Kreos, he was engaging underneath his own Zerglings. That means that the Zerglings were soaking up the Glaive Worm bounces. He also had a great position where basically Hendrils had to run, again, through Kreos' Mutals if he wanted to retreat. That means that he would be getting a couple of free pot shots, and that's exactly what we ended up seeing happen. And now, Kreos is actually on the other side of the map, being aggressive. Oh my god, giant bandling hits. I don't even know whose side it was for. I imagine that Hendrils got some big hits off on Kreos' Zergling count, because, I mean, that is just completely gone right now. And, you know, at the same time, Hendrils going for a little bit of a counterattack himself, looking to try and deny this fourth expansion, but it looks like the Mutals are in the right position to deal with this. And Kreos just looks like he has a slightly bigger Mutalist flock, but it's deceiving because they actually, again, have 27 to 27 Mutalists. And it's a little bit crazy how closely these two players are keeping up with each other in terms of the macro. Now, I like the army positioning. That's the main thing that's really been going on in this game. Kreos is doing a good job kind of keeping his army in the right places to defend, and same thing goes for Hendrils. Hendrils constantly has his Mutals dancing around, ready to intercept those Zerglings from Hendrils, but here we end up seeing the big engagement. Once again, Kreos soaking up a lot of those Glaive Worm bounces over here, but it looks like Hendrils rallying in with a couple more Zerglings. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for it to happen, but no, Kreos actually just reigns supreme, and those Mutalists just don't take nearly as much damage with those Zerglings soaking up the Glaive Worm bounces. He takes an enormous lead in the Mutals count. He's up a solid 10 Mutals, and that's going to really reign supreme in this matchup. This could actually be very well a game-ending engagement over here, as now we end up seeing Kreos move in with a ton of these Zerglings, and GG gets called. Hendrils gonna tap out, and Kreos ends up taking it with, honestly, not what you would think to be some really exciting game, in the sense that he did massive amounts of damage with his bandlings to the drone count. I mean, look at this. One worker lost. But the thing is, these players were constantly out on the map. They were constantly moving around with their Mutals, dancing back and forth, looking for the perfect engagement angles, trying to do Zergling harassment, realizing with great control that they weren't going to be able to do it, and pulling it back before the Mutals really got a whole lot of damage, because their opponents had really well-positioned Mutals. And it was a really cool game to see, just looking at how the army movement happened. And that was a really delight to see. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to be jumping into the Zerg versus Terran. If you're watching this on Twitch, don't go anywhere. It'll be a short intermission. But if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and find the Zerg versus Terran for the week of Team Gravity's Kreos. That's going to be week number 7. I hope to see you guys there. Yeah, take care.